being in a rehearsal space with actors, finding what the moments are in a scene that feel important, working out how to best shape the narrative. Oh, I have no idea if it was any good, but I knew that I was having fun.
Hello, my name is Eline Perez and you're listening to Are You an Artist? Today's episode is with Emma Wilkinson and it's about her journey from acting as a child towards directing, being a shadow artist and writing about a better future. I had so much fun re-listening to this conversation because Emma knows how to laugh about herself, she's very funny, and how to share her doubts and vulnerability. So I'm very grateful to open 2025 with this episode. Enjoy. Everything's so much better.
God, I hope so. I've not seen many 2025 predictions that are saying that, but we can be the first to say that it will be better.
Everything erased.
In every way. There's like a reset button.
It's like, God, okay, sorry, you messed up a little bit.
This has gotten out of hand.
I'm just gonna reset the word and give you another chance. Okay, let's start from scratch, 2025. That'd be so cool.
Such a good idea.
Christmas present. Reset button.
Reset button for the world. Listen, I'd even take like an undo button. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah. Control
reset.
Z.
Yeah.
Just let's go back. Oh wow. That'd be fantastic. I've written a letter. Dear Emma, we recently met on set, working as extra for a movie, and after a couple of days of being around each other, we started to talk. I discovered that you had 100 lives. You work as a director, script editor, actress. If anyone is listening, skilled in piano, violin, netball, and scuba diving, but also as a software developer. So you worked for TV, theater, but also people with a software, and that's really cool. Welcome to Are You an Artist podcast. And Emma, are you an artist?
Aline, it's so weird because I knew this was coming and it's still really hard. Well, first of all, thank you. I think that I would say on a good day, yes. But it's a complicated one because I initially associated the word artist actually specifically with visual art, like fine art. And so calling yourself an artist feels kind of specific to that. And that's not my medium at all. I don't paint, I don't do sculpture, anything like that. But then obviously, I don't know, as I got older, it does feel like we have this specific use of the word art to be fine art. But you can be an artist and be making something, be creating something in any kind of medium. It doesn't have to be fine art. So in some ways, I'm warming up to the idea of calling myself an artist. But at the same time, it's a tricky one still because I feel that there's also an overlap with how you earn your money and, you know, also imagining myself introducing myself to somebody new.
Yeah.
If I say, hi, I'm Emma, I'm an artist, it makes me want to vomit, which is not great as a first introduction. So, but at the same time, what I realized recently was that if we take away like the kind of practical stuff of how you earn your money and what does an artist really mean, I think if I had a day free, I could imagine myself just pursuing things that we might call art or...
Yeah. And everything you do is so creative also. So it's kind of...
Yeah. I like to spend my time doing things that engage with the world somehow, that potentially involve me making something. I have a kind of curiosity about things. And I guess in a really roundabout way, I think a lot of people who are artists of different kinds have those sensations of enjoying making things, enjoying engaging with the world and thinking about it and finding a tool of self-expression. So it's funny, like I feel deep down that calling myself an artist is somehow wrong or pompous.
Yeah.
And yet, I think on a good day, I can get there. And I think because I do also have this kind of additional career in software, if I'm in a phase where I'm earning my money from doing that, I feel in some ways less of an artist and yet more thirsty in some ways for artistic endeavors. And now that I've come to the end of a software job and I'm staring down a year of trying to make a living through art, in some ways it's even more scary to say that I'm an artist, because I have to really believe that because I've taken this kind of huge life punt on just hoping that I can make it work somehow. So yeah, maybe. I guess my answer is maybe.
Maybe.
Are you an artist?
Yeah, it is also a tricky one. I think it depends who is asking the question, because sometimes, you don't want to put something out there. I had this conversation with a friend that I struggled sometimes calling myself a dancer, because although I'm professionally trained and I practice every day, and that's something that is really important to me, I'm not paid at the moment to do it.
Yeah.
And so whenever I'm starting to say I'm a dancer, they're like, oh, are you with a company? Or do you have anything coming up? And when I say no, it's a bit like, oh, so then you're failing? Or like,
totally.
And I feel like actually I don't feel like I'm failing, because I'm still practicing and I still have the passion. So
yeah, and it's still you.
Yeah.
You know, you still did those years. You're still practicing. You're still creating and inventing. And in many ways, the idea that some other random figure is giving you work for that is kind of irrelevant. But it never feels like that, I imagine, because that's
and also sometimes I've done like dance jobs and it felt like, actually I don't feel like a dancer right now. Like I feel like I'm just trying to follow somebody, and it's just not. I feel very frustrated.
Yeah. And is that maybe because it feels, in that kind of setting, does it feel less artistic?
Exactly. It felt quite commercial. Or
Yeah.
So, well, you remember how it all started? The first time you created something? Or
Oh, interesting. I don't really, but both of my parents are classical musicians. And so I learned piano from a young age. And it was just always part of it. Kind of wasn't a big deal. Like, it just was part of life. You know, I kind of thought that everybody like got home from school, had dinner, and then had a piano lesson with their dad. Or like, obviously.
So cool.
But it's classical music's really an interesting one, because it takes such dedication to get the technique.
Probably like ballet in dance.
Yes, exactly. And interestingly, although I did get to a point kind of in my later teens where I felt like I could play the piano and there was something expressive going on rather than just a technical exercise, I still didn't feel like I was truly creating something.
Yeah.
So although those were probably like early experiences that were kind of baby steps towards being in a like artistic or creative world, that's probably not like the real genesis of it all for me. I don't think. And then when I went to university, I just kind of fell in with doing student drama. And I was seeing people act who were just so much better than me. And I felt like, this is maybe not my time to to act. Maybe not right now. And so, but I definitely loved storytelling. I definitely loved the kind of performance production feeling, like coming together with other people to make something was kind of an attractive idea to me. It felt exciting. And I was doing an English degree, and there was a lot that I was thinking about in terms of, I guess, story structure, the different ways of storytelling. Like, why do some different writers feel very different to read? Like, why do some people really enjoy certain genres and other people don't? You know, it's such a kind of
Yeah.
flexible medium. And so I just had these ideas percolating, and then we were lucky to be in a situation where it was quite easy to just decide to put on a play. Like there were a couple of student theatres. And so obviously it was a great loss to the acting world, but I stepped back from that and
Oh no.
I know, tiny violins. And just started directing. And more than anything, I just found it really fun. Like being in a rehearsal space with actors, finding things out. I found that really fun, like finding what the moments are in a scene that feel important, working out how to best shape the narrative arc or how best to kind of give this world the flavors that we want. I just found that process, to be clear, I have no idea if it was any good, but I knew that I was having fun and I just kind of followed that. And so I left university kind of feeling like I wanted to direct, but I think there was something else going on where that was all well and good, like knowing that I was having fun directing, but actually the way that the industries worked was completely alien to me. Like I didn't grow up in London. I didn't grow up knowing anybody who worked in TV or film or theatre. And it's hard to even know where to begin. Like it's hard to know what jobs are available if you're kind of before you found a way to kind of peek behind that curtain, if you will. So just spent quite a few years then. I moved to London, just trying to make things of my own and trying to find a way, or sometimes various ways, of earning a living that were in some way kind of related to directing or the broader world of drama and story.
So what did you do, for example?
So are you ready? Because as you say, I've had 100 jobs. So initially I worked at a little fringe theatre in West London. And I was like a general intern for them. So I would sometimes be doing front of house, but then also sometimes doing script reading, that kind of thing. And then I went to film school. When I finished film school, I worked as a producer's assistant for a film company, then a director's assistant on specific film projects. Then I worked in a talent agency as an agent's assistant. And then I worked as like a general producers and development assistant at a small indie TV company. Then obviously next natural step, directed an episode of Casualty, and then went back after that to work inside a production company, first of all as a producer's assistant and then as a script editor. And then it took another really, really natural step and became a software developer. And then I met you.
2025.
2025. Who can say which of those 1,000 things are we doing?
And how would you go through these jobs? Like, are you just very good at applying, or do you make connections? Because I'm terrible at...
Yeah, great question. I don't think I'm very good at applying because my pile of auto rejection emails is like larger than War and Peace, I would say. It's
But you are doing it though.
Yes,
you apply a lot.
yeah, that's true.
Because I'm not even good at applying.
Yeah.
It's not that...
But it's interesting, like I have known for a few months that I wanted to finish my software job and not go into another software job, like try and find something else in theatre and film. And actually I have found it really hard to sit down and do applications because I haven't done it in a little while. And it's just such a kind of gnarly mix of things, like having to evaluate yourself and then try and put that in writing in a way that might be appealing to somebody that you've never met before.
Yeah.
Just also, like, how am I going to write a CV? Like, which of my 19 personalities do you want a CV for?
That's probably my problem.
Yeah, it's hard. It is hard. But I would say that every one of those jobs I did apply for, it wasn't through connections.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of time on Microsoft Word, I'll tell you that.
It's interesting also because you mentioned when you were acting, you were observing people who were better than you. So you were already kind of aware of
Yeah.
people's abilities, and so that's so interesting that then you go towards directing and or talents
Yeah.
agency and
Yeah. There were probably a few things going on. One of them being that in some way, I probably from relatively early on was thinking about, do I believe this person in a dramatic way? Like, am I convinced by this performance? Is probably what I was thinking at the back of my head somewhere. And then I was just seeing so many people who I really did believe, who were just very good at kind of being a chameleon and becoming something else in a way that I just didn't see that in myself so much. I knew I was kind of interested by it and wanted to be near it, but it was definitely a skill that other people had more than me. And yeah, probably the fact that I was thinking about that or evaluating that, maybe there was some kind of early director seeds there. But also, I don't know, have you heard of the phrase of being a shadow artist? It's
no.
from Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way. And there's a chapter in her book where she talks about people kind of getting in touch with their inner artist or inner creator. And often one of the ways in which people get in their own way of creating is by being what she terms a shadow artist. So you are kind of near the action, but you haven't quite, there's something going on, be it confidence, be it giving yourself the time to explore your brain and your heart or whatever. There's something going on which means that you're not yet putting yourself on the front line. It's really convenient to be able to sort of say that you are in the arena of people doing cool things, but have none of the pressure of actually creating. So the sorts of roles that she kind of identifies people as potentially being shadow artists are things like people teaching a craft. Of course, there are many, many reasons why people teach, many of them really legit and so necessary. But there are also a subsection of people who potentially hide behind the cloak of teaching their craft rather than doing their craft because it's so scary.
That is so interesting. In the school I'm modeling for, they make sure that all the teachers have their own practice.
Yes.
That's why they
Oh
don't
my
give them too
gosh.
many hours.
Yeah.
Because,
Wow.
yeah, otherwise, how can you teach to draw or to paint if you don't have your
Yeah.
own practice?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, totally. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. And again, like another example she will give will be like somebody who's script editing, which means that you get to work up close with a writer, but you're not writing also. There's there's like a layer of protection there that maybe for yourself may not even be aware that you're doing it, but there's some kind of layer in between you and the thing that you want to do. And you've found a way to kind of justify yourself that you're working towards your actual goal of, for example, being a writer, being a dancer, whatever. But actually, the comfort zone that you've found isn't truly serving your bigger purpose or connecting you with the deeper thing that you want to explore.
Oh, wow.
I know.
It's a bit heavy.
It's a bit heavy. It's a bit of a... It's one of those books where sometimes you'll read a couple of paragraphs and
you question yourself too much.
And then you'll hit on something where you're like, Julia, get out of my brain. Yeah. So I do think there's an element of that for me as well, where even now, like having done this kind of weird circus of like almost making stuff for 10 years, there's still something very kind of appealing about being close to your thing, but not actually having to do it. And that is very counterproductive, really, in the long term.
Yeah.
But I think that probably partly informed why I wanted to try all these different things that are kind of circling around drama and storytelling. And also for me, there was genuinely an issue where I had no idea when I graduated about how any of these industries worked in practice. So I would not have had the faintest idea of how a day on set works, for example,
that's
without
my
having
big
done
problem
it.
actually with studies. It's a bit like same in dance school, you get the classes and everything, but it's kind of so far away from what it is really to live as a professional dancer. And
Yeah.
actually you spend much more time trying to apply for things
Yeah.
and just, it's completely unsaid in the...
Yeah. And it's like a huge additional piece of knowledge that I felt like I had to acquire. I'm sure everyone has their own journey with this, but yeah, I felt like in addition to understanding the kinds of projects that I would want to make, I felt also like I had to understand how all of these things get made, because I felt that without that knowledge, I would be shooting in the dark a bit. Like, okay, great, I want to write a play. But having that saved as a file on my computer is not the same thing as having it in a theatre. How do you make those leaps,
Yeah. Because now also you're back to kind of training as in acting also a little bit.
Yeah. I've been taking acting classes.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially having let my acting skills be dormant for 10 to 15 years, I decided it would be useful for me to pick it up again, because it is something that I find really vulnerable. There's no kind of shadow artist option for being an actor. Like, you just are you trying your best. And it's very like exposing and naked in that way. And I felt like I really wanted to learn to speak French. I had spent a long time at school studying it in an academic sense, but actually having the practical ability to do it was so scary, because in order to get to that point of practical ability, you had to practice. You had to be bad in public and get better. And I found that really, really scary, to the point that I wouldn't try. And so the amount of time I just spent around French people being like absolutely mute. Yeah, it was just so unhelpful of me and so silly, really, such a waste. But I really, getting over that hurdle of telling yourself that everybody has to learn. You will be bad at the beginning, but you will get better. I ideally wanted to just wake up and be immediately perfect. And that is...
That's also my life goal.
I know.
Just be suddenly perfect at everything I do.
Oh my God. That's another keyboard shortcut I would love. But it just doesn't work that way. And so I thought about other ways of trying to make myself feel vulnerable in a way that I couldn't back down from, having to work through it. And I felt that acting classes would be a good way of doing that, because if you pay for a term in advance, like I did, then if nothing else, the sheer principle of not wasting time and money will kick in, and you will find yourself like, I don't know, miming something to somebody you've never met, or, improvising a scene with somebody where, for whatever reason, you're a car mechanic and you're in space or whatever. It's good for the imagination and good for that vulnerability kind of exercise. And I've been doing that for a year now. So I feel a little bit like I've chipped away at that kind of fear element. And now I've got a term left, and I suppose I'm more interested in, like, can I actually get better at this thing, at acting? Because up until now, it's been like a kind of personality exercise, like training in how to be less afraid and feeble. And now I'd be interested to see... I've given up, by the way, on the idea that this will help me with my French in any way. I should just go to French classes and just find a tutor, So given that this whole thing was an absolute fool's errand, I might as well try and just see if I can get better at acting.
Well...
Watch this space.
And do you have an idea of something that you'd like to do, even in the next 5-10 years? Like, have something being put on in a theater, or writing a script for a movie, or...
I would love to devise a show, actually, like a theatre show. So I ran this year a few kind of one-off workshops with some actors that I know. And the whole idea really was just for us all to get together for a few hours and play games and just improvise a little bit. and just feel like we weren't in London just for one hot second, you know, and it all very low stakes. Like some of these actors knew each other, some of them didn't. But I was really interested in creating a kind of atmosphere where nobody felt like they had to prove anything. It was not competitive in any way. Basically just making it a very kind of as safe an environment as I could for people to feel like they could offer stuff. And it ended up being just really joyful. I think that it's very rare in this kind of deeply capitalistic urban world that we're in that you feel like you've got some time that you can protect in a way that nobody's expecting anything at the end. You don't have to count it as productive in quotation marks.
Yes, that is so hard.
So hard, right?
To do, yeah.
And every time I ran it, there was just a lovely feeling in the room. I felt like there were moments where my actor friends were able to access something or try something out in a kind of low stakes way that was like fulfilling to them, even if it didn't serve any bigger purpose, you know? But it made me think that because those sessions were so lovely, I'd like to maybe run a few more of them in a structured way and see if we can make something at the end without spoiling the kind of loveliness. So I guess improvising, but like with a purpose, with the idea of eventually creating a story. And something that a kind of area that I'd really like to work in is weirdly kind of what we were talking about at the very beginning, like what would a nice future look like? And there are so many issues here already, in that there's a reason that there are so many dystopic shows and films and plays, because there are so many things in our current world to be afraid of, and so many things that could easily develop into a more sinister version of its current self. So it's kind of is ripe for material to kind of think about a gloomier version of now. And also typically shows or plays that take a kind of positive narrative are harder to get dramatic tension in, because if your story is
walking walking on the grass,
Aline has a lovely day that just gets lovelier, it's like, cool, I'm happy for her, but
I would
like
vomit. I like darkness and despair and existentialist questions of the nothingness.
Listen, maybe that's how you could start at the beginning of the episode. And then gradually you just get chipped away out with sunshine and
Only because a musical from the West End.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be doing tap dances at the end with glitter streamers coming down.
With the hands, we're like, hey!
Yeah. There'll be a weird little interlude on roller skates. You'll go to the fairground or something. Yeah, it's just harder in some ways to make like really convincing stories in a world of sunshine, basically.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in trying to, because I feel almost constantly worried about the fact that the world is on fire.
Yeah.
And that the future seems really uncertain, and ultimately not enough is happening to kind of make people feel calmer. So although I love a kind of imagined future play or show or film, none of the imagined future things that I've seen recently have in any way been positive.
Yeah.
They're all like, oh no, we went way too far with the phones thing.
Oops.
And now we are phones. Or, oh no, we went way too far with the fossil fuel things and now the planet is uninhabitable. You know, and what if that it just wasn't that bad?
Yeah.
You know?
I feel also like we really need hope.
Yes.
And models of, like, even if it's not gonna happen, because otherwise it's so depressing. I'm just constantly, when I look outside, I'm like, oh
yeah. Yeah.
It's like, please, like.
Yeah, I also have made like a kind of separate resolution for, well, I've made 2 resolutions for myself for 2025. One is I really want to learn how to bowl, you know, like 10-pin bowling in a bowling alley.
Oh, bowling. Okay.
I didn't know whether that was miscomprehension or like just sheer judgment of my goal, but I will accept either, honestly.
I will not judge you, believe me.
Yeah, I just feel like I've been bowling a handful of times as a kid and never knew what I was doing, and it was always socially exposing and kind of horrible.
Oh.
Yeah, to be bad at it because you're always in a social setting and it's just never fun or nice.
Yeah.
And I've just let that kind of sadness there and not open that box. And then I watched an episode of The Simpsons, apparently where I get all my life lessons. And there's an episode where Marge almost becomes a pro bowling player. And bowling, no. Is it bowling player? It can't be. Bowler? I don't know.
I'm
Anyway,
French, I don't care.
You should get that on a t-shirt. And it opened my eyes to the possibility of having a bowling coach. And I thought, is that something that just exists on The Simpsons, or does it exist in our world too? It exists in our world. So I am thinking about doing that. But then my other potentially more difficult, depending on how bad I am at bowling, my other potentially more difficult resolution is that I want to completely change what I listen to, because I know that I really like music. I know that I can be interested in a whole range of things to listen to podcasts on. But what I've ended up doing this year is basically cramming my playlist full of political podcasts, which, yes, exactly, which has made me feel like I know what's going on. And now at the end of the year, I feel like I don't want to know what's going on. But also, like, there are so many options. Like, I know that listening to music makes me feel better rather than worse. So how fascinating that I have chosen not to do that all of this year and just instead listen to what's going on in America and, you know, all the rest of it. So I want to like just have a clean sweep and start again and listen to stuff that does offer something rather than just commenting on what is going wrong and how bad that might be.
And also, you have something on your website, no social media, because it's all a bit too much out there.
Right? Isn't it though?
When did you make that decision?
Probably, I would say I have genuinely not been on any kind of social media for about 5 years now. But I had been toying with the idea of being off certain platforms for several years before that. Mm-hmm. But I think it's been something like 5 years of cold turkey, because I had never found a way of being engaged with social media in a way that made me happy or in a way that was sustainable. Mm-hmm. And I also felt like there was something weird for me about social media in that if I saw posts from people that I knew, I didn't know what the etiquette was about whether or not I should pretend that I hadn't seen that. So like if for example, say you had put on a dance show, right? And I saw a poster for it on your Instagram.
Yeah.
If we then hung out like later that day, I wouldn't know whether to say, oh my God, you're doing a dance show, cool. Or whether I would have to say something like, so
what's going
on with you and the dance thing, you know? So I just found that way too much to kind of juggle. Like, what are we doing here? Are we pretending that this is entirely real? Because to a certain extent, social media just is everywhere and it is kind of real. But also, if you're in my life, I'd like to know that directly. I don't know. It was just a mess and I decided not to deal with the mess.
Yeah.
And now it means that I don't know anything that's going on unless people tell me directly.
Yeah.
Which by and large is a really good thing, I think. But it does also mean sometimes that I'll sit down with somebody and they'll mention a mutual friend and say like, so you know Sarah's moving to Chicago? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I had no idea about that. Why is she moving to Chicago? And they'll say, oh, because she married that American dude. And, you know, and all of these things that you just simply won't know if you haven't seen somebody face to face.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how to manage that. But also I felt like I find life quite fast paced in general. My brain feels quite busy. I feel like I often use my max amount of energy just being my one real personality. I don't know how to have the energy to have an additional personality online. But I do know that like it is a useful tool as well in some settings. So there's a part of me that would love to find a way to have a healthy relationship with it
I think
for a
it's
specific purpose.
very difficult.
Yeah.
I use it only to post some dance things, but then I get into watching other people's stuff.
Yep.
Or sometimes also I remember I used to post, I don't know, just a picture of a book. And then I'm like, am I posting this picture of the book because I want people to know that I've read that book? Or do I want to share that idea of the book?
Yeah.
Or do I want to look cool?
Oh my God. Oh my God. And I would have all of those thought spirals. And ultimately I knew that I'm such a basic lady that I always just want people to think that I'm cool, and that there's nothing deeper than that going on ever. And it just isn't. Yeah, I just had to have a long hard look at myself and feel like this isn't emphasizing good parts of my personality.
Yeah.
It's playing on lots of quite gnarly things. And I don't think overall it's good for me. And I suppose in that kind of way that I guess it's sort of semi-addictive also. I mean, those platforms are designed to be addictive, to keep people's attention in one place. But I felt like even if I wasn't looking at my social media feeds, I would find myself thinking about them or being in a moment, but thinking about how best to represent it on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of like an addiction, because then your brain is full of the thing, even when you're not with the thing. And I just couldn't, it was just a bit much out there.
Do you have inspirations and recommendations of things you've seen recently, books?
Yes, I would recommend. Have you seen Paddington in Peru?
No, I don't like movies with kind of half cartoon things, or I'm scared.
It's so unfortunate that my back is literally against the wall. Otherwise, I would be sneaking out of here. Oh my gosh!
I know.
Say more on that.
Like, it disturbs me that like teddy bear speaks.
Listen, when you put it like that, fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, listen, you're not wrong. But it is a fundamental part of the Paddington franchise that we all just understand that this is a talking bear living in a human household, and we're fine with that. If anything, we find it quite charming. So, okay, that's fine. In my opinion, Paddington 2 is the best film ever made. I've seen quite a lot of films and I have opinions on them, but that's my opinion on Paddington 2.
Okay,
that's
maybe
the best one.
I'll try.
Dig deep. I went to see a special screening the other week of It's a Wonderful Life. Have you seen that?
No.
It's a very old film.
Mm-hmm.
1946 it was made.
I do like old films.
Yeah, it's very, very beautiful. They often show it around Christmas time because it's set at Christmas. But it's not a cheesy Christmas. Well, gosh, is it? Maybe. All I can say is I went to a full cinema screening of this. So there were maybe like, I don't know, 150 people there. By the end, I didn't see anybody with dry eyes. Like, it's so moving that even like stern British dads in jumpers are like struggling to keep it together. It's just exploring the power of community, I think, is the simplest way of putting it. There's our central hero has this crisis where he suddenly feels like he's in so much trouble he would rather be dead, and he ends up being saved kind of practically and emotionally by the people around him. And they show up for him because he, throughout his life, has tried to do well by others. And it just is gorgeous.
Wow.
I very unironically came out of the cinema and was so moved that I said to the person I was with, God, I just want every billionaire to watch that film. I think it would change the world. And it's such a I can't believe how corny I was in that moment, but it's the kind of film that you will
put you in different states.
Yeah,
somehow.
I think so. And it's just so moving that it made me immediately want other people to see it so that we could talk about it, you know? And because it's basically also a lesson in socialism, it made me want to tell all the big bad capitalists, like, you could be a nice person like this.
You're
for
a big
example.
bad capitalist. Okay, little random questions of the end.
Oh, nice.
What makes you laugh?
Ooh, okay, lots of things, but my sense of humor often is in the unexpected. So, oh man, there are so many. Basically, I often find animals really funny, and it tends to be being caught off guard, thinking that you understand the situation that you're in, but then something else happening, the surprise, the unexpected, that makes me laugh.
So funny. Do you like to go to the supermarket?
I will avoid it if I can.
Mm-hmm.
I find it very... oh God, this is such a lame... Again, I'm saying something so lame out loud. I'm just going to have to do it. The lighting in there is terrible. I just genuinely find it one of the worst atmospheres you can have. Like, the horrible lighting, it's always the wrong temperature in there. They've never got their layout right so that it feels relaxing. It's just always like an affront. I just can't, it's not my happy place. But there is an exception. I love, as soon as I'm in a new country, I love going to the supermarket as soon as I can, because I also think it obviously teaches you a bit about what people are eating and how that may or may not differ from you. So it may be a small thing, like you see snacks that you don't have at home, and that's exciting to me for whatever reason. Or it might be that you walk around and you realize, like, oh, this culture is just fundamentally better at fresh fruit and veg than we are, for example. Like, everything just looks like the actual item it should be. And, you know, I love it for that kind of insight, but I think I have to be on holiday and or at my peak. Otherwise, I find...
At your peak. I'm at a peak now. I'm going to go to the supermarket.
If I feel at full strength, I will go to the supermarket, yeah.
If you could live a parallel life, but you can only do one thing, don't pick like 100 jobs.
What? That's my favorite thing. If I had a parallel life, I'd like to be able to be in the water or under the water as much as possible. And I will be the first to say I'm not a great athlete. So I'm not talking about like being an Olympic star, but something like being a diver in some, I don't know, rescue or exploration mission, that kind of thing. Just something that makes me feel a bit more aware of the fact that I am just a big ape in an alive world, and that's nice. Like, the idea that, like, I've spent so much of the past few years like sending emails. That is so it's so weird if you think too hard about it.
Yeah,
like,
let's not think too hard about it.
That's not actually. So yeah, something completely different. And I have just always really liked swimming, and now diving, and being able to do more of that and feeling just kind of alive in a different way. I think I'd love that.
Oh, that's a nice way to end.
Aww.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.